If you had a choice, would you book this or would you book this? Obviously this one. Just kidding. No shade, but this is just the reality of how travelers are looking at online booking sites. Especially now, there are so many amazing options to choose from. How do you make sure your listing page stands out and gets people to book? In today's video, I'll walk through 2 listing examples and share what works and what doesn't. As a host myself and as a really picky traveler, I love doing this. At a high level, before we dive into the line-by-line nitty-gritty, the purpose of the listing page, assuming you've already gotten that click through a really amazing thumbnail, and that is a whole other story for a whole other day, what you're really trying to generate is A, an excellent first impression. Is this place quality, and do I even want to keep scrolling? B, is it clear what the guest is getting? And you have to kind of understand this from their angle and putting on your guest hat. Are there things I am still wondering about? Are there unanswered questions? And if you think, well, if they have unanswered questions, they can just ask me, right? Listen, most of them are not even gonna ask. They're just gonna find a different listing that has all the questions answered and are exactly what they want. Yours might be what they need, but why even bother with that extra barrier? And then C, is this listing compelling enough for me to book it? Am I sold? Is this it? I'm exaggerating a little bit. Most people will take some time to think about booking a vacation rental. They might share it with whoever they're traveling with. But the goal here is still to make it so good and so amazing and so memorable that even if they're not ready to take out their credit card, at least they're saving it in their favorites. Or at least they're sharing it with their travel buddy. I personally save at least 5 to 10 favorites before I make a decision on which place to book. With this potential guest journey in mind, now let's go through a couple listing examples and go down a checklist of what makes a listing bad versus good versus super awesome. The first example is this lake house in Texas, and huge thank you to Presley and Sudha for sharing their listing with us and allowing us to dissect it in public and learn together. I'll leave their link in a pinned comment below. The first thing here is the title, which they have labeled Tranquil Lakefront Retreat Boat Dock Fish Fire Pit. And while this sounds like a jumble of keywords, I'll show you what it looks like on the main search page. Remember, the title is just one of the things that shows up along with the thumbnail picture on the main page in the search result. And so paired with this picture of a boat dock and having these descriptive words is totally fine for making it interesting enough for someone to click on it. The next section is the photos, and the first 5 photos get kind of the most eyeballs, and so it's very important to make sure that that is conveying what you need it to convey. Here, there are 4 lake/dock photos, which are absolutely beautiful, but I also think maybe one of these sunset dock ones could change into something else to showcase more of the home. The key thing is to make sure the first 5 photos are so good that people want to click into seeing all photos and scrolling. So as we click in, we see more of the living room, which is gorgeous. We see different angles of this house and in relation to the dock, what that distance looks like. Now, all the pictures on this page are organized logically, but they're not necessarily separated out by room, which is a feature you can utilize, and we'll see it in the next example. This could be an intentional choice if you want to guide people through a specific sequence of how to look at your home, but in many cases, separating out by room can help clarify what people are looking at. Here, I mean, it's pretty obvious that this is the living room, that's the dining room. I love all the angles that showcase how open concept this place is, and I can really imagine myself walking through the space and what it might feel like to physically be there. They've made really good use of the captions, for example, specifying that this is a dining table that fits 8, and then using this kitchen caption to highlight all of their amenities. A coffee photo is always worth it if that is something you offer. People always want coffee. And now moving on to the bedrooms, although they didn't arrange it kind of by room, to me it seems pretty obvious that these are different rooms just based on the different decor. So this one's got this blue and orange situation going on. The next room has this floral picture and then this yellow, mustard yellow bedspread thing. Another great use of the caption to highlight amenities, having a master king bed, lake view, having a side table that have touch control lights and USB ports to charge your phone. Besides being just descriptive, this also shares that they have really thought out this place with the comfort of the guest in mind. mind. And then obviously this would be the third room, a large family room with 2 queen beds with a TV and a couch and all these games. That's a fantastic picture of the fire pit showing the distance from the house. And I love that they specified they have a fire extinguisher. Overall, the captions have a lot of subtle touches to indicate A, they care about you as a guest and your experience, and B, they care about safety. And then moving on is the bathroom. I think it is the same bathroom. Wait, hold on. Is it 2 bathrooms? Which one is which?
3 hours later.
I think this is where maybe having the room separation could be helpful. And then there are some porch pictures. They have pictures during daytime and nighttime showing all around the house. I am honestly a little bit turned around, but that's also just me being directionally challenged. I really like this drone picture that shows where the house is, where the slow fire pit we previously saw was, and then let's see if we see the dock also. Boat launch is only at the end of the road, so we see the dock and the property, and even the property lines of where this goes. So that's very helpful. All right, moving back to the main page of the listing, 8 guests, 3 bedrooms, 4 beds, and 3 baths. Right after this is the guest favorite badge, which we talked about in a previous video. And I love that they have 5-star reviews and it's one of the best homes according to Airbnb. This definitely shows up by them being on the front page of when I search Corsicana. The next few callouts are based on what you can check off in their list of amenities and also as a super host. Most people prefer a self check-in, so if a smart lock is an option, definitely pursue that route. And then after that is kind of the meat of the description. I would fix this typo, and then they use the hashtag of the home, which is something you can definitely consider using if you're trying to build a brand. Alternatively, they could also just say welcome to like correctly spaced out words, Green Grove Lake Home, and then save the hashtag for later. These first few lines, as you can see, it goes right up to about here, is really what shows up before people click on expanding to show more. So you definitely want to highlight some of your best qualities and selling points of that property. So they use this space to highlight that this is a great location, an hour away from Dallas, under 3 hours from Austin and Houston, ultimate escape at the exquisite lakefront home with a boat dock to enjoy sunrise and sunset, and then nestled along the shores of a pristine Richland Chambers Lake, this enchanting cabin retreat offers an unparalleled blend of natural beauty and modern comfort. I think that's a fantastic description, and I want to highlight their use of words to attract people who are not looking to party and who are looking to enjoy some quiet time by the lake. They called this an escape, which implies this is not in the center of a city. They highlighted the lakefront nature of the home and obviously the boat dock, which is a very good feature. The sunrise and sunset description in pairing with the pictures definitely paint an experience of what the guests might feel as they come. And I love that their sunset sunrise pictures have nobody else in it. There's nothing going on. It looks very peaceful. Nestled is also a very quiet word. Describing the lake as pristine is also different than saying this is lively, and so this adds to that really chill vibe. And then lastly, calling out the cabin as an enchanting retreat. You can see how they played with the words to start to attract a certain kind of person looking for this quiet experience. As you read through the rest of the description, it is clear they put thought into their word choice, and that's me speaking as a host. As a guest, I would just read this and start to imagine myself surrounding myself in the natural beauty and how comfortable the sofa is and how nice that kitchen is equipped and how I can enjoy time with my family or friends. This description also serves to call out some amenity highlights. So for example, the king-size bed we talked about, the large deck that is outside, the grill and the outdoor dining area. It both includes the function of these amenities as well as like the descriptive feeling of how you might feel as a guest in enjoying the amenities of the house. So for example, describing the fireside and evenings under the starry sky as magical, describing the sunrises from the boat dock as breathtaking. Using some of those adjectives, obviously like not going way over the top, but using them thoughtfully can really add to enticing someone to book. The other thing they did a really good job with is filling out all of the blanks. So as you know, as you fill out the description, there is kind of the main about the space area with a lower character count. And then there is a title called The Space where you get to really dive in. I don't know if there's even a word limit here. You can just keep going and talk a lot about the house. There is the guest access section where you talk about how the guests might be accessing the area and whether you will be around and are there parts of the house that are off limits. And then other things to note is often a great place to highlight any weird rules, any things that are like city regulations, for example, that there are quiet hours. Presley and Sudha use this area to add kind of a liability statement waiver thing. And I think that seems reasonable with this being a lake house, and obviously any bodies of water, there is inherent risk in going into the water if you don't know how to swim. Next, we have where you will sleep, and that is generally a main concern of people. There's bedroom 1 with the king bed, as we saw, bedroom 2 with the queen bed, and bedroom 3 with the 2 queen beds. And I think that was very obvious even just in the main pictures going through. What this place offers is basically your amenities checklist. Guests who are searching for a place often use these to filter out places. So for example, if I go back to the search page, I can look at the amenities I can filter by. So if I really need air conditioning, I need a hair dryer, I need Wi-Fi, and a king bed, and I want it to be waterfront, then it really filters out some of the other places that don't fit that criteria. The other way that guests really use amenities is just kind of clicking on it and skimming through to get a sense of how many amenities a place has. Like the more filled out this seems, the more it feels like this is quality, that you're getting good value for your money. And no, it's not really an objective measure sometimes, but that is kind of the psychology of someone who's booking. Now I'll show you in an earlier version of what they sent me to review. They had NA in front of shampoo and conditioner and body soap. And this is because when you fill out these amenities, there are blanks on the host side to fill in what brand you have. So if you have nice shampoo and conditioner like Living Proof or like Pureology, I don't know, something that you really want to call out, this would be an opportunity to highlight that. But if you're not looking to highlight the brand, then I would just leave it blank, because otherwise it'll show up as a word in front of shampoo. And in their case, NA shampoo sounds like the shampoo is not available. So scrolling through, it seems like a lot of the expected items for a well-stocked house is there. Entertainment people do usually look at to see what is available. The other thing that I like to look at as a guest is kind of the heating and cooling section to make sure a place has air conditioning or heat, depending on the season and depending on where I'm traveling. The home safety section from a guest perspective, people are mainly just looking at if you have cameras on the property, and if so, what they look at, will they feel like it's intrusive? So here they describe that they have 3 motion activated actively recording camera, add an S, in all entrances which record audio/video. 1 overlooking the front entrance, 1 overlooking the side of the house, and 3 in the back porch entrance overlooking the back deck and yard. And so I think this is really helpful to know, because especially the back deck where you're walking out to the fire pit, that is usually where people will hang out. So having that as a heads up, I think, is helpful. And if someone is really not okay with it, at least they know before they book. For Wi-Fi, they didn't include the speed, but it is an option if you would like to highlight that you have really amazing speed. And you can add this by doing a speed test on your Airbnb app while you're at the house. Kitchen and dining is always helpful. And if they want to go the kid-friendly route, because I see them mentioning families, one consideration for addition is kid-friendly cups, kid-friendly plates and silverware, just so they're not breaking stuff and you have to replace them all the time. The rest of this sounds good. I do wonder if you need to bring your own charcoal. I would imagine so. Or this could be an option for an upcharge of, hey, if you intend to use a grill, we can stock the house with charcoal before you arrive for X number of dollars. Just a thought. And then location features, those are also just checkboxes describing the lake access, and then some outdoor details, and then parking facilities, services as in pets, if people can stay longer, self-check-in, smart lock, all of those things. Again, these are all just checkboxes. If someone has a specific need, they would just skim through the whole list to find what they need. My recommendation is to check as many boxes as you can and fill in as much detail as you can. It really can't hurt to provide that information for whoever might be looking for it. All right, continuing on is the calendar, and then lastly we have reviews. From a guest perspective, I am looking at obviously the overall rating, but also the cleanliness, accuracy, check-in, and communication. Location and value, that is very subjective. I usually just ignore whatever people are saying there. And as a guest, I would look through people who traveled like me. So I would be someone who stayed with kids, and I would care a little bit more about what they have to say. Of course, what guests write about is not fully in your control, but you can see actually how some of them copied some of the words that were used in the listing description, and if your house manual kind of reinforces some of those ideas in a weird way, like those thoughts kind of get planted into their head and they are more likely to use those similar words into their review. Doesn't always work that way, of course, and it still depends on whether those descriptions actually match the house. But if you can accurately describe your listing in nice adjectives that resonate with people, they might in turn describe your place with the words that you gave them. Now, as a host, how I would use these reviews is look for things that could be potential downsides for someone else in the future. So for example, this guy saw some wild deer, some cattle, some wildlife. He seems to really like it, but someone else from the city or who are not familiar with the surroundings and would be surprised by this in a bad way, it might be nice to incorporate some of that into your description. You already mentioned that you will be in nature. Maybe talk a little bit more about what that nature entails. I can tell you, as a person that grew up in the city, my view of nature is paved hiking paths, maybe an occasional bird, but if a wild boar jumps out, I would be alarmed. So you can consider adding some phrasing about how this is really embedded within nature, and there's natural wildlife that is around, including the fish that is great for fishing, but also these other like on-land animals that you might run across. Somebody down the road might appreciate the heads up. The other heads up that they might want to give people is about the bumpy and windy country back roads. Again, it really depends on the guest background and how used to they would be with this, but this might be something you can add to the other things to note or the getting there section. Further down is the map. That's not something you can change. And then lastly is the details on the host. Now, I might be alone in this, but I always look at the host profile before I book a place. I personally prefer a host that has maybe 1 to 3 listings, all with amazing reviews, over say some large property management company with like 20 different houses, all kind of cookie cutter within the same city. I do read their profile, and them saying they're nature lovers and avid travelers and that they're sharing their second home for pure vacationers. I resonate with that, and I am more likely to book a place because of that. There are more blanks you can fill out, like your favorite TV show, favorite memory, favorite hobby, and you can fill out as much as you would like, depending on how personal you want it to get. For my listings, because of my own personal preferences, I use my own name, and I add my husband in his own name as a co-host, and we use our own faces and the kids' faces because we do host a family-friendly beach house, and that adds a little bit of credibility. Here, they've used the house name as the host name, and they've included the hashtag in the description. I know they've built an Instagram page, they've submitted the house to Dwell, all good things. I can understand it from a branding kind of approach to have like this house be its own entity, regardless of your own names. If this is a route though, one suggestion is maybe switching over the host photo to eventually a professional looking logo. The picture here is really nice, but also kind of repeated already in the main listing page. Somewhat of a missed opportunity for presenting yourself as a more professional host and something more of a brand. I also have an Instagram page and a Google business profile and a logo, and I do plan to eventually use that to build more of a brand and then eventually direct booking, but I've just included the name of the house in the description so it's still searchable while keeping my host name as my own. Pros and cons to both methods, and it's totally up to you. All in all, I'm totally sold on this listing. I would love to book it. Congratulations on a job well done, and I highly recommend everyone taking some inspiration on the kinds of phrasing and listing writing skills that they used. The second listing we're looking at is this shared space in Australia, and a huge thanks to Max for allowing us to dissect it in public and talk about what we like and don't like. Right off the bat, I would say this is a very intriguing thumbnail picture that would entice me to click into it to see what's next. And overall, I like the sequence and the organization of pictures by room. I get a pretty good sense of where I'm looking at and what the space feels like. All the rooms are listed, and I feel like I understand what I'm kind of getting myself into. You're probably thinking I'll say something about the quality of the photos, and it's true. In general, professional photographs will do better on Airbnb. But I think in this case, given that the clientele may be more commuters, as they used in the title, or as a more cozy, budget-friendly family travel option, because it does hold up to 5 people, I think the description and photos just need to accomplish 2 things. One is provide an accurate impression, and then two, just give a friendly, harmless, clean, and well-stocked kind of vibe. Because in this case, spending a few $100s on a photographer might not be a worthwhile investment considering the nightly rate of only $40. The more homemade kind of vibe of these photos give the sense to the traveler that yeah, somebody probably lives there, and they probably literally went around their own house and took some pictures of the rooms that they are willing to share. Overall though, if it were me, I would probably do what I did with my tiny house, which was to use a nicer camera and better angles and capture more features of this house and use a little bit of photo editing in Lightroom to make it seem more put together, but still retain that friendliness and that chill vibes. How I would improve the listing though is I see that there is a little outside porch thing. I would like to know what that looks like if that's available to the guest to use. And then additionally, the captions are not quite filled out. So for example, describing this comfy chair, stating that this is the living room and it's a shared space, whatever the highlight might be. Or in the kitchen, what kind of supplies are there? In this darker picture of a room, I know they're trying to highlight the blackout shades, but maybe specifically call that out. And also in this room, I don't get to see the other angle of what's on the other side of that bed on the left side, right here. I assume that might be either the door or the closet, but I would like to see it a little bit better. And then just photo taking skills for anyone who's looking to take their own pictures. I am assuming Max is quite tall. This is too high. I would bring it down just a little bit, maybe like hold it chest height so that you can see this more accurately instead of it feels like everything's just looking down from really high up. Now moving on to the description, there are a few things I would tweak to add more information. It says it's a 2 bedrooms inside a townhouse and the 2 bedrooms are already shown. So now I have a question of, is the host inside the property or next door, or how does this work? I love that it highlights the dual projector screens and there's a private bathtub and that bathroom is not shared. That's very nice to hear. It highlights the board games, which is really cool, and a thought would be to maybe take a picture of where these are located, some of the amenities of the house that you want to highlight. And it's just a 5-minute stroll to both the train station and shopping center. So that's very convenient. The car park is in the complex. That's good to know. I think parking is often a main question. Is it street parking? Is it on the driveway? Is it in a garage? Or is it like attached to a building in some other way? Especially for a townhouse or for like an apartment complex. Sometimes there are key cards involved. There's like a whole thing about where parking is. People want to know. And there are also 2 swimming pools within the complex that I assume you can use as a guest, but maybe a little more information on how this is accessed. And if it's really straightforward, there is no specific access with a card or a fob or anything, you could just say 2 swimming pools within the complex with open access to guests. And then guest access, your host will be at work most of the time, ensuring your privacy and independence. There's keyless entry with a unique password, which is really helpful to know. And I wonder if Max can check a box somewhere that would give you a little call out logo at the top that says smart lock or self check-in, which is often a thing that people filter for in their searches. Moving on to the amenities, pretty much all the basics you would expect for staying at a house. As I look through this all seems very clear what I'm going to be getting with the reservation. Looking at Max's profile, I actually really enjoy hosts who are also guests themselves and they know what to expect with the experience, and I think that really helps people be a good host. In the during your stay section, this is pretty simple. If you need assistance, feel free to reach out on the mobile. Just sharing what mine looked like for the tiny house, which we have stopped hosting. Link on this video. If you'd like, you can add a little bit more about yourself, and I think this matters more for the shared space or like an ADU in your backyard kind of situation, because there is more contact, or at least people would see each other between the host and the guest. In my description, I add a little bit more about my personal experience with Airbnb and where we are located, how accessible we will be, and how much privacy the guest can get. And overall, it's meant to convey a very friendly but respectful and non-intrusive kind of vibe. As for house rules, there is a check-in time but not a checkout time specified. It might be good to just include one even if you're flexible, just so people have a general expectation and they can always ask if that doesn't work for them and you can decide what to do then. Safety and property, they don't have a camera and so that doesn't really apply here, and then the cancellation policy is at the end as well. Overall, I think this listing is off to a solid start. The main things I would edit is adding a little bit more description either in words or in pictures, maybe a little bit of both. And there is no rush. You can kind of continue to tinker with it and perfect it over time. And then secondly, I would add a checkout time just to have a clear expectation for people who are coming in. I'd love to take a look at more listings. I always learn something new. It's a ton of fun, and I hope you think so too. My question for you is, do you prefer them in this kind of video format, or do you think it would be better served in kind of a written thing, kind of like McMansion Hell, but obviously less savage? I think it actually would be also fun to talk to the host and go through the listing with them, or better yet, go visit the property too. So many amazing potential ideas. Please let me know what sounds good to you. I'm all ears and we'll make it happen. Writing an excellent listing is obviously really important, but there are other factors at play, like how many people who search for a vacation rental actually eventually land on your page and turn into a booking. Do you know the percentage of people who are clicking on your thumbnail? You need to learn the Airbnb algorithm, and I've got that for you in this video right here.